Well, good evening, everyone. Happy Wednesday and happy first Wednesday of 2021. I am here with my husband, Joey, and we actually get to lead tonight's midweek little encouragement, and we're super excited about it.
It's very exciting stuff.
Yeah, we don't do this super often, but it's always really fun when we get to do it. And my dad just loves asking us to do it. I think, gets a certain level of joy out of it. But yeah, we're so glad to be here tonight and to be just a way to encourage you, hopefully, and just give you something to think on for the rest of this week. So it's no secret that, just coming off of the year 2020, it's no secret that 2020 for a lot of people just was awful, and at a minimum had at least some rough spots for some people, more so than others. I don't think there's one person in the world who wasn't in some way affected negatively by just the chaos that the year 2020 was. So for us personally, it was a really big year because we got to get married and go on a honeymoon and have all the fun in the sense of planning for that. But also with that, because it was 2020, it was also awful to plan and to put all that together. I mean, I'm sure you experience it some too, the level of stress, but...
Yeah, it's funny that 2020 for me, and I think for you as well, was one of the best years of our lives. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, not the worst year of our lives, because it wouldn't be two things at once, but it would be a lot of hardships and kind of struggles and rearranging plans and things of that nature.
Right, hardship and struggle that I think neither of us expected to have to go through, but also that I'm sure nobody expected to go through. I don't know of one person that knew what was going to happen last year, since we're in 2021 now. I'm still kind of forgetting. But yeah, so for us, on a personal level, as I'm sure you have many personal things that you've gone through as well, it just felt like we just went through all of it. We, of course, were planning a wedding, got engaged at the end of 2019, not a whole lot going on in 2019, but then the beginning of 2020, it was okay, we're getting stuff together.
Yeah, it was truly planning out the wedding and
yeah,
guest list, inviting, and the reception, and
we agonized over that guest list too.
We did. It was between, I think we were trying to keep it at 150.
Yeah.
150 to 170. And then of course, as the months went on, it went from 150 to 75 to 50. And then I think...
And then later in the year, 25. So
yeah.
It was a lot of stress kind of for nothing in the end, because it didn't matter if it was 150 or 170, it wasn't going to be that anyways. Yeah. So we planned a wedding, the beginning of 2020 it was fine, but then March hit and it's okay, well, we're in for a ride. And so planned a wedding, had to replan a wedding, which is not for the faint of heart. My heart literally goes out to every bride and person who had to deal with that this past year, and honestly, who's probably also still dealing with it this year. It's not fun, and it's just stressful. So we did that, and then Joey and I were actually just talking about it. We remembered that we actually had to cancel 2 honeymoons because we initially had... Our original honeymoon was scheduled for a cruise. Obviously, the cruising industry, I think, is still shut down.
Yeah. We were going to go to 3 destination islands.
Yeah.
Cozumel, Jamaica.
I don't remember the third one.
Yeah, I don't either. But, so that failed, and then so as a substitute, we were going to do Seabrook.
Seabrook Island in South Carolina, because it's domestic, not international.
Yeah. And then with my work situation, it turned out we were doing 1 week on and 1 week off because of the coronavirus. And so they were actually postponing vacations. And so they postponed mine as well.
Which did not feel fair to me because a honeymoon felt different than a vacation, but hey.
You'd think honeymoon would take priority, but apparently not. That's okay. And then so instead we did an extended weekend.
Yeah, so the reason we couldn't go to the Seabrook, though, was because it happened to be during the week that you had to work. And the following week you would have been off, but it didn't work out. It was the wrong week.
Yeah, and then of course you had to be on call in case, someone was sick or whatever.
Right.
But, we made the best of it, of course, and we still had a great time.
Right, yeah, we did. We took a long weekend. We made it work, but the point, I guess, that still had to cancel those 2 honeymoons and rescheduled it, but then got to take our really good honeymoon back in November. So that was that, but still a lot of stress, a lot of back and forth and rescheduling and deposits and getting them back. It's just a lot of in limbo. And then we had to reschedule our reception because we didn't get to do it in May like we normally would have, but literally in May, everything was still shut down. Like, I don't think restaurants were open. I know that, event places, we couldn't have it at our original event.
Yeah, so the wedding was May 23rd, and of course the reception was going to be that day as well. And then they started doing the reopenings May 25th.
Right, yeah.
At 20% capacity or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the country club was closed on the 23rd, and that's why we had to cancel that whole venue.
Right.
And then when we rescheduled the reception, twice or 3 different times and deciding whether we're even going to do it at all, it was that Friday. We were going to have the reception Saturday, and it was that Friday.
Well, and we rescheduled it for November. So this is literally 6 months after our wedding, where it's we finally were okay, we'll just do it in November. Surely by that time, this will be the virus situation will be at least died down.
But then it started coming into Greenup County, and we became a red zone or hot spot or whatever.
Right.
And then so Andy Bashir makes the decision to do 10 or less.
25 or less.
25 or less. That's
when
what
it came to weddings and receptions.
Yeah. And then so we had to trim our guest list down to 25.
And texting, because I think we had a little over 50 people for that reception.
Yeah.
So then we had to text our friends, very close friends, and family, maybe not family, but at least at a minimum our close friends, be like, hey, I'm sorry, but you're uninvited. That was not a fun situation to be in.
Very hard, yeah, not fun.
That was probably one of the worst things. Of course, everyone was more than understanding, but still it's I already am only having such minimal people to begin with, and I'm having to cut it down even further. It was a little bit demoralizing for a second, but again, 2020, it's just tough. But so we went through that, and then that was all the wedding stuff, and then in September, I had a kidney stone. Never had a kidney stone in my life. Didn't know what was wrong. I was in the worst pain I've ever been in my life. We had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, Lauren was doubled over in the bathroom floor, and I was thinking to myself, do I just ride this out and she'll kind of be a little better and we'll go to bed? Because it was midnight.
Yeah.
And then you're I think I need to go to the hospital or the ER. And it's I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to take my newly wife. We'll just go to the ER and check in and, because I've never really done that before.
Yeah.
So that was quite the experience, a little trial by fire, but.
Yeah, neither of us, I don't think, had ever had to go to the ER before. And you're I don't know how to, and I'm Joey, I can't help you right now. I am literally in severe pain. I cannot navigate you.
That was a tough evening, but.
Yeah, but I had a kidney stone, and, initially didn't know that was the problem. And then, we find out what it is and everything. It's like, oh, thank God we know what it is, so now we can get it taken care of. And but like, that ended well in the sense that like it eventually left. And then back in July, my grandma like actually gets COVID. She's in Kansas City, visiting one of her sons, and she gets COVID. And my grandma's 83 years old. Obviously, the exact kind of person that you do not want to get COVID. And at first it was like, okay, well, go to the hospital, like, because she was having some symptoms and stuff. They get her checked out or whatever, and it just kept getting worse. Like, it wasn't like, okay, well, like, go home and just rest and make sure you're doing these things. But it was like, no, okay, like, you need to check in, and then it turned from checked in to checking into ICU. And then they were talking about ventilators, and then telling us anyone over 60 years old who's gone on a ventilator has not lived. And then it was just like one like piece of bad news after another. And of course during that time, like, we're trying to like build up our faith and like, pray and believe God that like that she is going to recover and get healed and all that kind of stuff. And then we ask people to join with us in prayer, believing for her full recovery. And I think in the end, she was in the ICU or in the hospital for like 17 or 19 days, which is a long time. Like, I mean, that's almost a month in the hospital. So she eventually made it through, and she's back home now and seems just as like feisty and lively as ever, which is amazing. But it was just like one thing after another, from wedding stuff to reception to honeymoon to kidney stone to your grandma has COVID and she's actually like this is bad. Like, ICU plus COVID is not good. And so it was just like one thing after another, as I'm sure most of you probably can relate to this whole year, it being just like one hit after another. But then, like, personally for us, in October, like right after the kidney stone ordeal and all that stuff, for us, we found out that we were pregnant, or that we are pregnant, it's not past tense. So that's obviously an amazing thing, and that has no caveat whatsoever. Like, it's not like this is a good thing, but, it's just an amazingly awesome, good thing. And that has been just like, I don't know, all of those other things were tough, obviously, but for me, it's just like, none of the other stuff matters, anymore now.
And, I mean, we had considered briefly if we were going to, push the wedding down the road, whether it be later in the year or next year. And, I mean, thank God we didn't, because...
There's no way.
Yeah, because then there wouldn't be this baby right now growing. And then, so it just kind of puts things into perspective a little bit as to if you try to push things down the road, then you're actually pushing your life later down into next year.
Yeah, and like Joey and I've talked about it too, like we understand like caution has to be exercised, and like using wisdom and stuff during this whole time of all of our lives. I've washed my hands more than I think I probably ever have in a year. I've used hand sanitizer more than I ever have. And just like things like that, like you just have to be cautious. But like also to that point, like we did consider, I probably considered it more than what you did, because you were like pretty set on not postponing the wedding. But like that during that time, it was like, do we just postpone it? Like, do we look at dates like in the fall or whatever, just to do all of it together? And like consider that and everything, but on it, like literally, had we done that, I 100% know like that we would not, be on our way to having a child. And it's like, what have we done that like with other things, where we put so many things on hold? It's like you put it on hold for so long, but it's like your life is passing you by, because like life still happens irrelevant to, COVID and coronavirus or anything, that could happen. And again, I'm not advocating to not use wisdom, to not, be cautious and careful, but I think there is a line where it's like, okay, like we have to do all that, but we also have to just trust and believe God that even if we did get coronavirus, which we're not hoping for, we're not trying to, but trusting and believing that like he will pull us through out of that situation, no matter what. And that's kind of like how, I feel like what our mentality has been through it is just like, we're going to be cautious, we're going to be careful, but we also know that God's going to take care of us,
Yeah. And then so to sum up, 2020, there was, for us, and I think for everyone, they can say there was some good moments and some memorable moments. And for us, 2020 was great. 2020 was hard, and it's over.
Yeah.
It's in the past, and we'll cherish some memories, and we can look back fondly over some things, and we can realize that we've grown like pretty quickly through a lot of those trials.
Yeah.
And then now we can look for, now we're in 2021, so now we look to tomorrow and what we're going to be doing tomorrow and the next day and throughout this year, and, what grounds we're going to cultivate in to produce, good fruits as opposed to sour fruits and, bad attitudes and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because, if you, like, taking it down to, like, the actual basics of what it is, like, the whole story to begin with in the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, it's been about God pursuing us and about God wanting relationship with us and wanting to be with us. And, of course, over time we mess that up, whether it be Adam and Eve in the garden, all of the terrible things that they did in Babylon, and like how the Israelites, went through all the things that they did and turned their back on the Lord. He still, from beginning to end, was trying to find a way to be with us and to maintain relationship and communion with us. And even in the midst of coronavirus, he's still looking for ways in which he can be with us, in which he can bring us out of captivity and bring us out of our distraught situations, and for all of those terrible things that we went through in 2020, like planning and replanning a wedding, but I also got the husband that I had prayed and believed for so much of my life. And then, canceling and rescheduling honeymoons, like that happened, but then I also got to have an amazing honeymoon on a beautiful beach, with you, and like it was amazing, like even with all the stuff. And then like the whole reception thing, like, yeah, we had to reschedule it. Yeah, we had to uninvite people, which was awful, but we also got to have our first dance, and I got to have my father-daughter dance, and, and then my grandma almost dying, like, that happened, but also we got to see these faith-filled prayers of, like, people joining with us, and we got to see her restoration of her health and her lungs, and it's like, every one of those situations, it has been like, yes, there are negative things, and we all went through them in 2020. But also, like, what can we say about the end of it? Like, there were still amazingly awesome things that happened. And then, obviously, the best thing for us, the baby, like, a fulfillment of, like, I think both our hopes and dreams that, we'd one day have a baby, and it's like
a little quicker than we expected. But
yeah, maybe a little quicker.
We were thinking maybe more 2021,
right?
But 2020, it happened.
But I also believe that, like, it was kind of like, obviously we were involved, but it also was like God saying, like, yes, you guys specifically went through some crap this year, but I'm gonna give you the best thing ever this year. I feel like it was on purpose that we found out this year.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, but that's the whole story of it from beginning to end, the Bible. It's God's effort and his pursuit of us, and not just saving us from hell, but also saving us from our own personal hells, our own personal hell of 2020. Like it's the beautiful redemption story, and you can find it in every situation in your life. You just have to look for it. But yeah, going into 2021, it's like, okay, we've turned a page. We're on a whole new year, which in reality, does a brand new year mean something so significant? Yes and no. We're probably still dealing with residual, COVID stuff. But also it's just a fresh start to look at things differently and to ask ourselves, like, what are we going to do with this year? Are we going to look for God and his redemption in every situation that we're facing? How are we going to live our lives in 2021 that display him and show that, that he's with us and everything?
Yeah, and like you said, like going from 2020 to 2021, it's not like, all these things happen and that's how you know it's the new year. It's just a date, it's a day. But it's also, it's a mindset. You kind of, it's a new year, so you can actually, whether it's a psychology thing or not, you can kind of feel that freshness of, it's a whole new year, I've got a clean slate, and what am I going to do? And of course, like a lot of people, they'll make their resolutions. And a lot of churches, they kind of do like, a corporate fast. And I know Lauren and I, we're going to start the year off with a fast to kind of just to set the tone for the year. And there's a lot of things you can do and that you should challenge yourself to do throughout the year. And whether it be to start the year off with a fast, if you're going to do like a Daniel fast or fast from like social media or, just whatever. And then, but also to kind of decide what are some of your goals for the year, and not just like personal financial goals or things that you want to do, cross off your bucket list, but also what are some works that you can do in relation to the body of Christ. So, like, are there organizations out there that are, Christian organizations that, feed the poor? And would you consider, donating to that organization on a monthly basis, whether it be $10 or $50 or whatever, because it's a good thing, they're feeding the poor. Of course, do your research on organizations like that and, kind of check out the overhead. And of course, everyone's, whoever is in that organization, they have to make money too, make a living.
Yeah.
But, so things like that. And also, it doesn't have to be a money thing. It can be just donating your time and your effort. Like, the Lord talks about in the Bible, like, the widows in the church, they need, where they don't have like a man or a husband anymore. And there's like a lot of things around the house that need to be done, whether it be a leaky faucet or, the floor is kind of caving in, we need to seek those people out. And because people aren't just going to be like, oh, I need your help. Usually people will kind of keep to themselves.
Yeah.
And so we need to like kind of, break through a little bit and, ask like, what can I do for you? Can I please help you this week? Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've got wrote down that I'm kind of planning on doing, and that, I think anyone should really do, is to pray for a specific person each week. Like, for whether, from Monday to Monday, you pray for this specific person. It doesn't have to be in the church, but maybe start with your family, your close friends, and then, people within the church. And just pray over that person every day for that week. And then even before you start, call them or get in contact with them and let them know that you are praying for them and that, you're going to be interceding for them to God this week. And then just ask if there's something that you can pray for over them. Or, and if they say something like, well, my car's actually broke down this week, so if you could pray about that. And you can pray about that, but you also don't have to pray about things like that. You can go over and offer them a ride to work or, to church. Mm-hmm. So it's yes, praying over them, but also like trying to solve problems for people. And so, 52 weeks a year, you can pray fervently for 52 people and to help, build relationships. That's what the church family, needs to do. You need to strengthen the brethren And I mean, if we're going to say that we're a church and that we're a church family, then we need to communicate with each other, we need to pray for each other, and we need to encourage each other. Instead of, because I mean, another thing with 2020 is it's built these barriers where there's just a lot more isolation.
Yeah.
And it's very destructive, not only for adults, but also, kind of for the younger, the youth, and the kids, and things like that. So I would encourage just everyone, whether it be maybe not for a 7-day period you're praying for a person, maybe just every day a different person. But we need to do things like that to encourage. I mean, not only the church brethren, but like that'll make an influence and an impact outside of the church and to people who aren't saved. It doesn't take long to kind of catch that buzz. But.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and something that needs to be said, especially like this year, going into this year when we have been so isolated, when our church services, not just our individual church service, but like church services worldwide, I'm sure like have gone down. We've lost connection with people, and I sometimes wonder, have we lost effectiveness in the body of Christ on that scale because we haven't been consistently coming into church? Not that you do all those things that you just said when you're in church. You most of the times don't do those things. That's like outside of church. But do you forget to be the body of Christ when you're not consistently exposed to it with congregating with your like-minded peers?
Yeah, and I mean, even this year, I know there's been a few times, and I mean, it's kind of a little ashamed to admit, but like I'll go to church, or we'll go to church on Sunday, pray, worship, and all that. And then throughout that week, I won't read my word. I won't really pray too much, and I won't really seek the throne room of God. And then, but then church comes next Sunday. It's like, okay, yeah, back to church. It's kind of like an everyday. You have to pursue the lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's so good to be reminded to do those sorts of things, just especially this year when so many, like we've still been going to church, but a lot of people haven't been. And, I think it's a good challenge for not only the people who are still like coming physically into the church building, but also those who have been more isolated. Because the thing is, like, and again, I'm not bashing on, isolating or whatever. I understand it. I know that, certain people have health conditions where you're more susceptible to different ailments and stuff. But I also am like, people need you too. Like the ones who are isolated, there are people who need you and need your specific anointing, your specific gift that you have on your life. It's not just about you. And I know that can maybe be taken the wrong way, but I think in the midst of all this, we've maybe forgotten that other people need us in our specific, whatever it is that we're gifted with. So, if that is you, whether you've been coming to church or haven't been, it's fine either way, but just remember that you specifically are needed by the people in your life. And I think
Absolutely.
That's a great way to remember that we are needed and that we can make a difference. But I think that's kind of, do you have anything else? Or
the only thing I really had, which I had the Bible open for James, and that was basically just like your faith and your works. In James chapter 2, it's 14 through 17. Starting at 14, what use is it, my brethren, if someone says he has faith but he has no works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is without clothing and in need of daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and be filled, and yet you do not give them what is necessary for their body, what use is that? Even so, faith, if it has no works, is dead being by itself. And so, like, what it's saying there is, like, you can have faith in God and faith in Jesus and, like, all the great things that he'll do. But if you're not, like, exercising your faith in any way, then it is literally just words.
Yeah.
Or, like, a thought, a nice thought. I have faith in Jesus.
Yeah.
But I'm not actually showing I have faith in Jesus because I'm not doing anything about it. And it says, you know, you see the hungry and the poor, and you say, and you pray for them, and you say, oh, be filled and be merry. It's like, well, dude, I mean, you could probably go buy a sweater and go buy a box of bagels or donuts and like give that person something to eat and give them something warm. You don't have to pray about doing that. You can just do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's, as far as like Christianity and being the light, those are some basic 101 things that we need to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. And when you said that, it just made me think of like how you're saying widows probably aren't going to just flat out ask you like, hey, I need some help with this. Well, you don't let them ask. You call them, hey, how are you doing? Can I help you with anything this week? You know.
And I guarantee they'll like have at least something like, oh yeah, I've been needing this taken care of for a while. And it might be something as simple as like a leaky faucet. But, you know, I mean, an older woman maybe probably has no idea how to go about doing that.
Right. And I mean, we're working on that kind of stuff too, like being more. This is not just for you all. We're like talking to ourselves too.
And that's the thing, because this is a new year, so it's a reset. This is a good time to start challenging things. And I mean, I'm gonna try to do some things that make me uncomfortable. But if you are uncomfortable, then that is probably the will of God.
Well, and you're probably growing too.
Yeah, and growing pains and all of those things.
Yeah. Yep. You're exactly right. Well, thank you guys for being with us and for tuning in with us tonight for our first Wednesday of 2021. We have every confidence and belief that 2021 is going to be amazing. You know, that doesn't deny that things always are going on, whether it's a pandemic or some world event. But that still doesn't change the fact that it can still be an incredible year and a year worth celebrating, just like what Jason and Jill were talking about on Sunday. The word celebrate for this year, for 2021. And I can line up with that, you know?
Yeah, I could celebrate good times.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Very punny.
Yeah. All right. Well, God bless you guys. We'll see you Sunday.
Thanks.